So good day, ma'am. Good day, everyone. By the way, I am Queen Anticabel. I am from Group 2, and our topic is administrative provision. To begin with, let us define what is administrative provision. So, administrative provision refers to the authority of managing the business or institutional activities in an organization from a various aspects, including external and internal resources. So, administrative provision is also a branch of government that has a power or control to manage organization. Aside from that, it is also responsible for giving authority to manage business or institutional activities. Kibali, these administrative provisions is a act, a rule, or a law that provide ideas or help to a one organization to maintain a good performance in your business or institutional activities. So aside from that, administrative provision also includes many various aspects. It is including internal and external resources. So some of the examples of administrative provisions are registration requirements, kinds of BIR forms, filing and due dates, receipts, and etc.
Hi, I am Resume Cavalida. So, may I continue the report? Registration requirements. So, requirements in every person subject to any interval revenue task shall register once with the appropriate revenue district officer. So, first, it is within 10 days from the date of employment or on or before the commencement of business, or before payment of any tax due, or even upon filing of a return statement or declaration as required in this code. So the registration shall contain the taxpayer's name, style, place of residence, business, and such other information as may be required by the commissioner in the form prescribed, therefore, provided and that the commissioners shall simplify the business registration and task compliance requirements of self-employed individuals and or professionals. And also, a person maintaining a head office, branch, or facility shall register with the revenue district officer having jurisdiction over the head office.
BIR forms. First is the account information forms, meaning all possible transactions that the owner of the account committed is valid, or any other information related to the account. Then next is the application forms. One example of this is the application for contractor's final payment release certificate. Next is the certificates. It is an official document that proves that the owner of the company or organizations or the taxpayer pay their taxes. This document also confirms that the company holds a tax certificate. Next is the excise tax return. It is a tax directly imposed by the government to a specific products or services, like for example the cigarette, alcohol, or fuels. This is made to limit or control the usage of such products or services. Next is the documentary stamp. Documentary stamp tax return are taxes on documents and papers evidencing the acceptance, assignment, sale, or transfer of obligation rights or property. Common examples of this is asking a certification from PRC. You need to pay for the documentary stamp.
Income tax returns. A tax return is documentation filed with the tax authority that reports income, expenses, and other relevant financial information. Example of this is the quarterly income tax return for corporation, partnership, and other non-individual taxpayers. This return is filed quarterly by every corporation, partnership, joint stock companies, joint accounts, association, government-owned or controlled corporation, agencies, and instrumentalities. Legal forms. Example of this is the application and joint certification. Next is the payment remittance form. Example is the monthly remittance return of income taxes withheld on compensation. It is filed by a withholding agent who deducts and withholds taxes on compensation paid to employees. Transfer tax return is charged by a state or local government to complete the sale of property from one another to another. Example of this is the donor's tax return. These transfers or costs to transfer property by gift, whether in trust or otherwise, whether the gift is direct or indirect, and whether the property is real or personal, or tangible and intangible. Lastly is the VAT percentage tax return. Example is the monthly value added tax return. A vatable business are subject to pay monthly VAT based on his net sale.
There are also provisions when it comes to filing and due dates. We have penalties for late filing of tax returns. For late filing of tax returns with tax due to be paid, we have number 1, surcharge, charging an amount of 25% of the equivalent penalty to the tax required to be paid. Number 2, interest. In general, an interest of 20% per annum or higher shall be assessed and collected on any unpaid amount of tax from the date prescribed for payment until the amount is fully paid. Number 3, compromise. Failure to file and or pay any internal revenue tax at the time or times required by law or regulation shall face a criminal penalty of fine of not less than 10,000 and imprisonment of not less than 1 year but not more than 10 years. The amount of compromise shall be determined by the amount of tax unpaid. So for example, the amount of tax unpaid exceeds 5,000 but does not exceed 10,000, then the amount of compromise is 3,000. Letter B. For late filing of tax returns with no tax due to be paid. Number 1. For violation which may be subject to compromise. In Tax Code Section 255, failure to make or file or submit any return of supply correct information at the time or times required by law or regulation shall face a criminal penalty of fine of not less than 10,000 and imprisonment of not less than 1 year but not more than 10 years. The amount of compromise shall be determined by the gross sales, earnings or receipts or gross estate or gift, based on the subject returns information for filing and submission. So for example, it exceeds 50,000 but does not exceed 100,000, then the compromise is 5,000. For violation which may be subject to criminal action. Number 2. Failure to file certain information returns unless it is shown that such failure is due to reasonable cause and not to willful neglect, shall be paid with the person failing to file, a 1,000 for each failure, and shall not exceed 25,000. While lastly, for late filing of statement or reports required to be filed with no tax due to be paid. Any person who violates any provision of this code or any rule or regulation promulgated by the Department of Finance for which no specific penalty is provided by law shall, upon conviction for each act or omission, be punished by a fine of not more than 1,000 or suffer imprisonment of not more than 6 months, or both.
BIR receipt is a document that provides evidence of a sale of a service by or to a business. These are the index for application for authority to print receipts and invoices. All persons who are engaged in a business shall secure from the BIR an authority to print receipts or sales or commercial invoice. Tax form is a declaration of a personal income made annually to the tax authorities and used as a basis for assessing an individual's liability for taxation. Example for tax form, BIR Form 1906, application to print receipts and invoices. Documentary requirements deals with the issue owning of the goods, especially when this changes during transport. Example for documentation is photocopy of last issued ATP or printer certificate of delivery or PCD. Procedures. There are procedures for you to get the receipt. For taxpayers, accomplish BIR Form 1906 and submit the same together with the documentary requirements to RDO where the HO is located or concerned office under the large taxpayer service. Keep or file PCD and ATP copy duly received or issued by BIR for audit purposes. Taxpayers branch office shall furnish its RDO a copy of the ATP issued by the appropriate BIR office having jurisdiction over the head office. For the print supplier, prepare printer certificate of delivery or PCD in 5 copies and submit to RDO where the place of business is located or concerned office under the large taxpayer service within 30 days. Penalties: failure to file or pay an internal revenue tax at the time or times required by law. Amount of compromise penalty: for failure to issue receipts or sales or commercial invoices, first offense will be 10,000 pesos and second offense will be 20,000 pesos. For refusal to issue receipts or sales or commercial invoices, 25,000 pesos is the first offense and the second offense will be 50,000 pesos. Revenue regulations are issued once signed by the Secretary of Finance upon recommendation of the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, prescribe or define rules and regulations for the effective enforcement of the provisions of the National Internal Revenue Code or NRC and related statutes. Codal reference provides the related reference section of the tax code of 1997 or relevant tax provision of any other special law.